On March 8, 2014, 239 people boarded a plane in Kuala Lumpur. They were flying to Beijing. It should have been a routine 6-hour flight. Instead, less than an hour after takeoff, the aircraft vanished from radar without a single distress call. No mayday, no warning, no explanation. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared into the night, and despite the largest, most expensive search operation in aviation history, most of the plane has never been found. More than 10 years later, the families are still waiting for answers. This is the story of how a Boeing 777 carrying 239 souls simply ceased to exist. The flight departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:41 a.m. On board were passengers from 14 different countries, including a group of Chinese calligraphy artists, 2 young children with their families, and a pair of men later found to be traveling on stolen passports. The captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, was a veteran pilot with over 18,000 flying hours. His co-pilot, Farik Abdul Hamid, was still in training on the aircraft. Everything about the flight's departure looked completely normal. Nothing suggested that this would become one of the greatest mysteries of the 21st century. At 1:19 a.m., the last voice transmission from the cockpit was heard. The words were simple: "Good night, Malaysian 370. Moments later, the plane's transponder, the system that identifies aircraft to civilian radar, went silent. Just like that, MH370 disappeared from the screens air traffic controllers were watching. At first, nobody panicked. Technical glitches happen. But as the minutes turned into hours and the plane never landed in Beijing, a horrifying realization set in. This wasn't a glitch. The plane was gone. What investigators discovered next made the case even stranger. Military radar, unlike civilian radar, had continued tracking an unidentified aircraft for almost another hour. That aircraft had turned sharply off its planned route, crossing back over the Malay Peninsula and heading out over the Andaman Sea. Someone, or something, had deliberately taken the plane hundreds of miles off course. But why would a commercial aircraft turn around in the dead of night and fly silently into the darkness, unseen and unheard by anyone on the ground? Then came the detail that changed everything. A satellite company called Inmarsat revealed that MH370 had continued sending faint, automatic handshake signals to one of its satellites for nearly 7 more hours after it disappeared from radar. 7 hours. That meant the plane hadn't crashed shortly after losing contact. It had kept flying, deep into the morning, far beyond where anyone had been looking. Using nothing but the angle of those satellite pings, mathematicians and engineers tried to trace an invisible path across the globe. Their conclusion pointed to one of the most remote, desolate stretches of ocean on Earth, the southern Indian Ocean. What followed was a search unlike anything aviation had ever seen. Ships, military aircraft, and satellites from more than 24 countries scoured hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of open water. Weeks passed, then months. Search teams found nothing but empty waves. The world watched, waiting for any sign of wreckage, any piece of evidence that could explain what had happened to the plane and the people inside it. But the ocean gave up nothing. It wasn't until July 2015, more than a year after the disappearance, that the first confirmed piece of debris washed ashore on the French island of Réunion, thousands of kilometers from the search zone. It was a wing flap called a flaperon, covered in barnacles, but unmistakably part of a Boeing 777. Over the following months, more fragments appeared on beaches across Africa and nearby islands. The debris confirmed one heartbreaking fact: the plane had gone into the ocean, but it revealed almost nothing about how or why it got there. With so little physical evidence, theories multiplied. Some believed the captain deliberately diverted the plane in a murder-suicide. Others pointed to a catastrophic fire or mechanical failure that incapacitated the crew while the plane flew on autopilot for hours. Some suspected a hijacking gone wrong. Some even proposed shadowy geopolitical explanations involving cargo on board. Investigators studied flight simulator data recovered from the captain's home computer, which showed a route eerily similar to the plane's actual path into the Southern Ocean, but nothing was ever proven. No wreckage of the main fuselage was ever recovered. No black box was ever found. In 2018, after the most extensive underwater search in history, covering over 120,000 square kilometers of seabed, the official investigation closed without a definitive answer. The final report stated plainly that investigators could not determine the real cause of the disappearance. For the families of the 239 people on board, that meant no closure, no funerals with certainty, no answers to bring peace. Today, small pieces of MH370 still occasionally wash up on distant shores, quiet reminders of a mystery the world has never solved. Somewhere at the bottom of the Indian Ocean lies the truth about what happened in the final hours of that flight. Until it's found, one question remains, haunting investigators, families, and the world alike. What really happened to Flight 370?